As students in the Understanding Audiences journalism class, we have been working to conduct secondary research, interviews, and an online survey to better understand the media interests of the majority of our future audience, those without a college degree. We have began this project with the notion that this group is important to study because it is very different from us as journalists, who are required to have a bachelor's degree. We found that the level of education within this group varies widely. In a survey of 219 respondents, 35% have earned an associate's degree or attended some college but not earned a degree. Also, just over half of respondents currently attending a four-year university are over the age of 24, and only 2 of the 5 people attending a 2-year degree program are younger than 24. This is a good indicator that a large portion of our future audience will have completed some level of post-secondary education, but not necessarily in the traditional time frame. We should not consider this group as uneducated and should take their news interests very seriously as we move throughout our career. Now we will explore our 4 different hypotheses regarding the media preferences of this audience and give examples of how to make this kind of research better in the future. So, looking at a sample of the various categories dealing with education correlating with news consumption, we see some that reinforced our hypothesis: online news, using the computer at home, cell phone news, and to a lesser extent blog reading. But also several that did not reinforce our hypothesis in TV consumption, talking with family or friends about the news, and watching news videos online. So in the end, it's impossible for me to say if our hypothesis was completely confirmed or completely rejected. With a larger sample size, we would have a much better indication of whether or not our hypothesis was true or false. And now we're going to go to Michael, who is dealing with our second hypothesis about how higher levels of education will affect media trust and reliability.
Thanks, Max. Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Gossam, and today I'll be discussing the hypothesis pertaining to levels of trust and reliability of the media, specifically as far as the level of attainment in a bachelor's degree versus people without a bachelor's degree. Do people with a bachelor's degree trust or find the media more reliable? When breaking down the numbers specifically between people who have attained a bachelor's degree and people who haven't, reliability on both levels and trust were very high. The fields that were analyzed were local newspaper, local TV, national TV, local radio, national radio, online, and blogs, all as outlets that people get their news, and as far as how reliable they thought these outlets were. Across the board, including all fields, people who had attained a bachelor's degree, 69% thought the media in all of these fields were somewhat reliable. 76% of people without a bachelor's degree thought that they were at least somewhat reliable. Now, when I say at least somewhat reliable, the question also has very reliable as an answer too, including both of those in the field. Now, herein lies the problem with the question. I think it would have been a little bit better had the question had a larger scale between, say, 1 to 7, and along those scales of 1 being the least reliable and 7 being very reliable. I think that you would have seen a better discrepancy as far as the data goes. Blogs really were quite the outlier because, according to the statistics, only 17% of people without bachelor's degree trusted blogs. Only 17% of them. 22% for people with a bachelor's degree. So that's why the original average I listed to you included that. So I took those out and ran the numbers again. Reliability was even higher once you take away the outlier of blogs. So overall, when answering the question, do people with bachelor's degree find the media to be more reliable, the answer, according to the statistics, is no. In fact, excluding the outliers, it's about 9% higher for people who have not attained a bachelor's degree as far as the reliability that they find in the media. In the next hypothesis, Sophia Patton will bring to the forefront whether or not lower levels of educational attainment mean lower levels of interest in national news and other various media outlets.
Thanks, Michael. Our hypothesis is that lower levels of educational attainment will lead to lower levels of interest in national news, among other areas. We found that all 5 levels of educational attainment rated national news as the most important. Those who felt the strongest about national news were people who have only received a high school diploma. However, this group is made up solely of 18 to 24-year-olds, so it is not an accurate depiction of how that educational group feels about the news. Those who felt the least strongly about national news have obtained an associate's degree, but since they care more about national news than people with some college and no degree, our original thought that less education means less interest in national news is not necessarily true. Overall, those who marked that they have completed 12th grade or less showed the lowest interest in opinions and editorials, business and financial news, science and technology, and political news. However, this group is the biggest outlier because it is only made up of 5 women, 1 who is between the ages of 35 and 54, and 4 who are older than 55. In conclusion, it's hard to say whether lower levels of education result in lower levels of news interest for the issues outlined earlier, and because the question didn't ask people to rate if they actually read or watched these sections. Just because people marked that they think things are important doesn't mean they stay updated on the issues. A more appropriate question would have been to ask respondents to respond whether they read or watch these sections and how often. And now to Sarah.
When I began researching, I started off with the hypothesis that people's gender would predict their news consumption preferences better than their education would. After researching, I found that that is not necessarily always the case, and it depends on the different media. With 55.6% of people with a bachelor's degree indicating they are light readers of the newspaper, which would be 0 to 2 days per week, and 63.7% of people without a bachelor's degree doing the same, we found that education is a much better indicator than gender in determining whether a person is likely to read the newspaper. However, when looking at magazine reading, gender is a much better indicator of consumption. 57% of people with a bachelor's degree said that they read a magazine 2 or fewer times a week, while 69% of people without bachelor's degrees do the same. Although the difference is 12%, the difference for men and women is 16%, with 71% of men saying that they are light readers and only 55% of women saying they are light readers. Also, 26% of men indicated that they never read a magazine, compared to 16% of women respondents. So women are picking up magazines far more often than men are, even though there is a discrepancy between education levels. Reading a newspaper online is also unique. People with a bachelor's degree read the newspaper online far more than people without. 24% said that they read it every day, compared to only 9% of people without a bachelor's degree. But when looking at sex, it is clear that men are also reading the newspaper online far more than women, 26% every day compared to 11% for women. But this could be because men in the survey have a higher level of education compared to women. It is also strikingly obvious that gender is a better indicator for whether a person uses a computer at work to check the news. Although 13% more people without a bachelor's degree marked that they never check the news on a computer at work, 26% of men without a bachelor's degree never check it, compared to 50% of women. Watching TV news follows the same trend, with 5% more people without a bachelor's degree watching TV every day. 30% of those people are men, whereas 48% are women.
Our first hypothesis was inconclusive because half of the data proved it and half of it disproved it. Our second hypothesis was mostly proven, with the exception of newspapers. Our third hypothesis was refuted, and the opposite was found to be true. Our fourth and final hypothesis was also inconclusive because the data was not representative enough. For the future, we suggest not conducting it via email and trying to obtain a larger pool of responses. Lastly, it's important to note the high interest high school graduates showed in national, local, business and financial, and political news. Since this entire group was comprised of 18 to 24-year-olds, it could mean that while they consume, we should work to establish good rapport with this group because research shows the next age group is the most critical of the news.